which one we want it to show up?
See it pop up?
Yeah, go ahead.
Good night, everyone. Welcome to the show. Just give you a few minutes to be able to share the videos with your groups, with your friends, and everyone else. But we are going live and having this discussion very shortly. Yeah, so you can share to your groups.
I think we got most of them covered.
Good night, everyone. Again, thank you for tuning in and welcome to the show. Tonight we have a very honored guest. We have Dr. DeLisle Worrell, and for those of you who may not be aware, he is our past central bank governor, and he has shared with us a publication that is entitled The Barbados Economy, Road to Prosperity. And tonight we're going to have some insight into the thought process behind this publication, and you're going to have your chance to ask some questions and to hear from the panel as to how exactly Barbados is going to get back onto this road of prosperity. To my immediate left, we have no stranger to the show, Mr. Shane Lowe, and I'm very glad that you have agreed to come back. For those who do not know, he is our resident economist. He shares his knowledge with us very freely and in a way that is extremely straightforward and down to earth for us to be able to understand, and I really appreciate that you came back.
Thanks for having me.
And to Dr. Worrell's right, we have Corey Lane, also no stranger to the media and to the public. For those who do not know though, he is on VOB, Brass Tacks, Mr. Brass Tacks. He also has the Nature Ranch, which is a charity that assists...
Sorry to interrupt. The farm was in France, Buzz is called.
Buzz?
Maybe your...
Oh.
Maybe the charger.
Okay, so that's for you.
So just check in and
Good night, everyone, again. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to the show. Tonight we have a very honored guest. We have Dr. DeLisle Worrell, and for those of you who may not be aware, he is our past central bank governor, and he has shared with us a publication that is entitled Barbados Economy, Road to Prosperity. And tonight we're going to
continue.
Okay. Apologies for the interruption. It was introducing Mr. Brass Tacks. Thank you for agreeing to be here.
I'm going to do the introduction to the introduction.
And for those who do not know Mr. Duane Burke, he is our resident, definite, permanent guest to this show, and he always shares his insights and helps with making sure everything runs smoothly. So I am glad that Duane is here once again, helping us to share knowledge and to get all of this information out there in an understandable format.
Good evening.
So without any further ado, I'm going to turn over to Dr. Worrell.
Thanks, Krystle, and thanks for this opportunity. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak directly to the audience who needs to hear this message. And the message is that the Barbados economy is well on the way to a prosperous future thanks to the competitiveness of our tourism. Barbados is the most competitive economy in the Caribbean, according to the published reports of the World Economic Forum. The range, quality, and variety of the tourist experience in Barbados is unrivaled, and visitors are full of praise for Barbadian hospitality. The economy has the potential to grow at 3% per year on the basis of tourism and its spin-offs, the construction and business, professional and personal services, including sport and culture. However, two roadblocks stand in the way. Ever since 2008, government has failed to observe the golden rule. Current spending exceeds tax receipts. Every year since 2008, government has spent 20% more than tax receipts just on running costs, wages, supplies, and debt service. That is why government now has such poor credit, and why the foreign reserves have dwindled to the point where devaluation looms. The NSRL has not cured the problem. In the last 6 months, with the NSRL, current spending exceeded tax receipts by 17%. The second roadblock is government's wastefulness and inefficiency, reflected in the deterioration of our roads, public transportation, water supply and sewerage, licensing and approval systems, tax administration, legal systems, and others. Barbados' competitiveness ranking has slipped significantly because of these inefficiencies. Urgent and decisive action is needed to remove these roadblocks and open the path to prosperity for all Barbadians. In my paper, which Krystle alluded to, The Path to Prosperity, which is available at DeLisleWorrell.com, you will find a 7-point plan to remove these roadblocks. That plan is designed to accelerate the growth rate to a sustainable 3% per year by 2021, restore foreign exchange reserves to January 2013 levels by the end of 2018, stabilize the debt to GDP ratio and put it on a downward trajectory, and improve Barbados' international competitiveness and creditworthiness. And that is our reality.
Okay, thank you for sharing.
Yes, sir. Before we get into all the questions for tonight, because this is the first program that we've had, and even up to the time we were coming through the door, there were questions still coming into us. So we're looking to have a very constructive and informative meeting. But there are some things that we need to address, and During your speeches in 2011 and 2012, you laid the foundation for effectively highlighting that the implementation of first world economics on small world or developing economies was not practical or feasible. Further, your encounter with the head of the IMF, Christine Lagarde, explaining in your words the model was simply wrong. Of their devaluation policies, especially on economies like ours, was legendary. At least it was for me, but you were my hero then. Now, this group, the Social Accountability and Education Group, was founded on the principles of governance, being transparency, accountability, and participation, primarily participation. However, between I think it was 2012 and now, your actions while governor ran contrary to these principles. You first refused the Nation newspaper from attending the press conferences. Then you stopped the press conferences altogether and started issuing press releases. You had effectively had closed-door sessions while abandoning participatory discussion, which would open your statement and presentation of your numbers to scrutiny. I, along with many others, took great deference to this stance, especially given your position as what effectively was manager of our assets and our funds for all 285,000 of us. Furthermore, most of your suggestions in your current report is relatable to 2010 period and beyond, except they only appear to be making the circuit today, some 7 years later. So, compiling a list of queries from ourselves plus other folks, I will read out all the questions, which I'm pretty sure they'll all have the same answer. So rather than ask each question individually, I will read them together in lump sum. Did you feed us a skewed position over the years? Were your positions politically influenced? Were you influenced in your position and economic prognosis? Why did you take the position of an apparent cloak management style? Why did you restrict our ability to ask questions on matters of direct importance to all 285,000 of us? Does printing money to unsustainable levels during this period show up as appropriate methodology in economic theory? How did this and other policies during your time contribute to where we are today? Do you consider yourself complicit? Do you believe that you've lost credibility and integrity to the people of Barbados? And last but not least, do you believe that you owe all of us at least an apology?
Yes. I could spend a long time on all of these things. But the reality is it is not about me. It is about this economy, right? And that is why, you have not heard me say anything about the circumstances of my leaving the central bank. Because I think that this is an irrelevance, I could go into the, sort of discussion of what you have just raised. Because it is a misrepresentation of the reality. So all I need to say on that is that my positions on all of these matters are a matter of record. You can go back you can consult the internet, it's all on the central bank website, all my press releases, all my press statements, all my interactive, the forums that I held, the interactive forums, which replaced the press release, right? Which actually were, if you go back and review them, were really informative. The one thing I will say about press releases, and it is a criticism that press releases have attracted not only in Barbados but around the world, that they do not deal with the facts. The reason that press releases were discontinued is that at the end of the press release, there was no additional information about the reality of our economy which was communicated to the public as a result. What replaced the press releases were the twice yearly economic forums, which were, as you recall, like this, participatory occasions where you had a panel and you had interaction from the general public. And we also innovated by having a special audience and moderator for the audience that we're addressing to, the millennials. And if you go back and you compare the information content of the 4 economic forums that we held, and compare that with the press releases, with the press conferences which preceded them, you understand that what we innovated to replace the ineffective press releases are the future of communication. And that is what this forum affords.
I said
But, in the final analysis, what I don't want tonight's discussion to be about me. Because I can take care of myself, right? I have nothing to apologize for. And I have, and as I say, my record speaks for itself. And the people who are asking me to apologize need to go back and examine the record. I stand by my record, it is public. The things that are being recommended, that I'm recommending, are the essential things that were the content of government's policy during the entire period of my tenure. I insist that the audience should read my paper, The Barbados Economy, The Road to Prosperity, because it explains that from the beginning we had the right tools, we had the right perspective, we had the correct policy, and we had the framework for ensuring that policy was carried out. And it wasn't.
I want to interject here because I agree with the statement you made. I don't like to get caught up with personalities and so on. I like to be more policy. But why I think this is important is because you need to have credibility as a messenger for people to see credibility in the message.
No. The message has credibility in and of itself. I'm saying to you.
Let's say that the message has credibility, right? But if they don't see credibility in the messenger, I tell you how people see things.
Listen, I think that if we want to be constructive and if we want to advance the discussion, and my position has always been that the message speaks for itself. And you have to address the reality. And as I say, this country is heading for a crisis. And that is what I would like us to have a discussion about tonight.
Yeah, we agree. Because personally, I want to have a constructive meeting. You are correct. This evening is not about Dr. DeLisle Worrell and the past. And we don't want to detract from, because we have a crisis. And crisis is not, as you point out, not Dr. DeLisle Worrell. The crisis is Barbados. But what I would tell you is I would agree to disagree with you on your position that you took in the last couple of years. But as I said, I don't want to detract from the session we're having today. It was merely we have to, because that's a general feeling that's coming across. And the message we have to, for me, I have reconciled that is the past. For me, more importantly right now is the message out there from as many people on the boat that we can sail this boat that we're on into a path of prosperity, which is what I like with your heading, because too often we have these shows, we always try to highlight the positive. And I like how you phrase yours, which was the road to prosperity, because we are faced with negativity every single day. And it's not really a matter of negativity, it's actually reality. So what we are here for tonight is constructive, but it had to be put out of the way because we don't want it to detract from whatever we're saying for the rest of the evening. Because as Corey pointed out, we've talked before, there's a feeling out there that we were, as people of Barbados, we were not given the right message from you in terms of where we're going and the messages. But that's just, as we say, we put that behind, and we more prefer now to deal with the path forward, and that we can deal with that at another time.
So
I can deal with you guys privately. Yeah.
No problem.
So going right into the publication, some of the questions from the review that we would have performed that came up would have been related to the mention for the reduction in the spending that has to happen and the conditions that are required for the government to not undertake cuts to the public sector employment being advocated in the strategy that you have. So what specific sectors have been identified for job cuts, or do you think would be the best sectors to look at? Because you would have identified a number of cuts that would happen over a period of time, but being able to say where these should happen so that we can identify where the private sector may have to step up and take that initiative and partner in terms of having these persons then transferred into that area. Where do you think that should happen?
Market economies don't work like that. I mean, you don't sort of say.
I know you can't just pick a person. They came out to this sector and they go into that sector. But
exactly.
If
So what you have to do, the way you have to approach it is you have to approach it from the top down in a sense, right? Now you have a problem, right? It is costing you 17% more to run the government than the taxes will support. So you have got to bring that in fact, you have got to do more than that, because you have to get rid of the NSRL. The NSRL is strangling the economy. The NSRL is destroying wealth, is making people less able to pay the taxes to support the government, right? So you've got to come to a situation where you reduce your expenditure sufficiently that your taxes, minus the NSRL, will cover your expenditures, your running costs, okay? And so you go down from there, you say there are two elements that are critical to that. One is the reduction in the employment, the other is the reduction in the transfer in the subsidies for the state enterprises, okay? And then you say, how do you do that? You do that in today's world. If you're restructuring and downsizing, you have a separation package. That is the other essential thing. And in that package, you create bridges for people to move on. So one of the things that you do is you have early retirement. So some of the people who are close to retirement, you make it possible for them, give them an incentive to go to retirement. Other people, also the package comes for everybody who leaves with a lump sum, okay, over and above their eligibility. And that lump sum will then enable some other people to make choices, to go into business for themselves. You have a hobby that you can convert into a business. You have something that you intended to take up in your retirement. You can move to that because you now have a lump sum. You have repairs or extensions that you wanted to do to your property. All of these things, right? And so that is how you will take care of the transition, right? And you'll have retraining programs. You'll have programs for people who, and there will be some people who want to move into high-tech areas. There want to be some people who have creative cultural talents, right? You're now freeing up the restraints on tourism. A lot of tourism investment. Another essential part of my recommendations is that you expedite the processes for the tourism investments that are in process. One of the things that my recommendations are designed to do, and one of the things that makes it essential for you to have the support of the international financial institutions, is the restoration of confidence and the rebuilding of the foreign reserves, because that is a tremendous break on investment. There are people who want to invest in Barbados because this is the one of the most desirable places to do investment in a whole range of things because of where we are located, because of the climate we have, because of the health and educational services that are available, because of the sense of security of person and property that we offer and so on. And because of the general hospitality of people who want to invest. But they're worried about the devaluation. They're worried about the fact that the central bank has no reserves. And the reason we have lost the reserves is because we have not balanced the books.
I want to follow up on that question. You may not have identified sectors, but what about levels? Because the last time we went on this job thing, 35 countries, we said more people decided to go to Barbados, NCC, very low level. And when you added all that together, it wasn't really cutting it.
No.
So on this time, have you identified, are we going all the way up to ministers or from
And on top of that, a lot of persons were hired back.
Yeah, in the third quarter in 2016 to the fourth quarter, the labour statistics, I said, show that it was either 2,700 or 2,400 we hired in government according to labour statistics. So where did they, what
that's part of it. You say it's fall down.
Yeah.
I want to know in terms of the
So
plan. And look at the elements of the strategy
secretaries were
page here.
included in this retrenchment.
But you see, that's the whole point. It's not a socialist economy, as I say, right? So what you have to do is you have clearly fundamental reorganization within the public sector is necessary, right? There are systems that we have in the public sector that have remained unchanged for 50 years. Before we had computers, before we had internet and so on, we were still using it. Okay? Right? So I'm saying these are the things that must be changed, right? And once you change and you have a new structure, then that will define the talents and the capabilities that you need. And those are the things that you will then use, that you will then put in place, and the things that you no longer need, those are the things that become redundant. And you're absolutely right that clearly they have to be from the top down. In fact, I would say that there is, that the fact that these systems have remained in place speaks to the need to replace the top echelons. Mm-hmm. Because, if, and the fact that things don't work, if you had competent management in the transport authority, the roads would get fixed because there would be somebody who would say, this is the amount of money we have, this is what we can do with it. We will abandon some roads that don't matter, and we will make sure that the main arteries get not only maintained, but resurfaced on a particular schedule.
Mm-hmm. Just again, because before we digress, because we're still talking about public sector here, one of the things I found is that, in my opinion, we have good people that work in the public sector. I always had a very good encounter. Where I have the problem is the processes. And the processes, because I'm from an accounting background, I think the processes, and they're kind of redundant. One of the things a friend of mine, Adrian McLean, he always touts is having what they call change officers within each of the organizations. Do you think there's any merit to that, and that could actually have a cost benefit within each of the public sector, where the change officer responsibility is to go through and look at the processes? The reason why this keeps coming back to me is I remember at a public sector reform by ICAP many years ago, that we were told that when you lost a bag, you had to fill out a form, and it had nothing on it related to airplane. It was related to a shipping boat. Mm-hmm. And in 1990 something, can't remember when it was, but Sir Lloyd Erskine Sandiford lost his bag, and when he had to fill out the form, it got changed because the form was a long form. So if we were to make the public sector more efficient in the process side of things, would that not sort of mitigate the job cut to some extent?
It means that you will actually have, in terms of the present complement, you may actually have to cut more, because the kinds of competence and the kinds of approaches to administration, which is implicit in the kind of structure that we need for efficiency is alien to many of the people who are in they have come up in a hierarchical structure, and that's what they're comfortable with. Mm-hmm. So if you have a replacement where the emphasis is on actual achieving outcomes, they are going to resist that.
So, given that framework, then what conditions are required for government to now undertake the cuts in the public sector employment that you are advocating in your strategy?
I think that is why an essential element has to be the involvement of the international financial institutions, and the kind of program that we need is what is called a structural adjustment program. That's a 5-year program where there is an oversight by the international financial institutions led by the IMF, which speaks to your achievement of certain targets. And so I'm saying that our structural adjustment program should be focused squarely on the reform of government and of the state-owned enterprises. The governance, the administration, the organization, and the personnel. Mm-hmm. And there should be specific targets related to the things that we have all identified and that are specified in international reports like the Global Competitiveness Report, like the Doing Business Report, like reports that have been done by our own Productivity Council.
So,
go ahead.
No. So I think so far what I've been hearing with this whole issue is that labor needs capital to be productive, right? Capital being the physical capital or the processes that we have, or I call that technology, but also capital being the human capital, so training and education. You spoke about in the strategy, you spoke about just now, maybe having to get rid of some of the people at the higher end because they're obviously the leaders. But how do we attract the type of leaders in the public sector that we need, given especially sometimes the gap in the wages and stuff like that? How do we get those people from the private sector, from the multilaterals, to move over to the public sector, so that the public sector is seen as the place to be, the place to work?
Absolutely, and that is part of the numbers that are employed in the public sector are part of the problem, because you have these relatively, low skilled or inappropriately skilled people that are filling out the numbers in the public sector. They are absorbing the resources that you need to pay the people who are actually, doing good public service. So our police are underpaid, or teachers are underpaid, or health workers are underpaid, and the competent people that we need to attract in the administrative sections of the public service, we can't attract them because we're not paying.
I think it has more to do with leadership, and I'll say this because when I found out that the Ministry of Agriculture has the most qualified persons in all the various fields, the masters, the doctors, and to me it's still one of the most unproductive ministries on the island, I think it has to do with who supervises them as opposed to the training and things required. Because if they are allowed, and I don't want to pick on them because there are a number of other ones that I work with, I'm a super victim of the army occupation. And that's why when you spoke to the whole idea of getting rid or getting them to change the way, I'm an eternal optimist, but I'm not optimistic. Because we have public sector reform, done like Dave Archer, and he can tell you that office was brought into the ministry, the Prime Minister's office, because as they tried to change things, they were butting their head against the culture of the occupation, the army of occupation. How then do you change this? How do we implement these strategies as laid out here when there's this type of mindset and concrete culture within the fact that we go into a government job so that I have security and I can relax?
This is where your point about the organization comes in. If you have new organizations and new forms of organization, which are not hierarchical, then those individuals, the good ones, the ones that you mentioned that are technically competent and so on, they will now have voice, right? So that instead of having a situation where, which is typical in the central bank as well, because the central bank needs that kind of organization. As a matter of fact, that is, I tried to introduce a complete new organization in the central bank, and neither the management nor the board was ready for it. Okay. Right? So, it got nowhere for precisely the reason that you said. Right. Because what it involves is the replacement of that hierarchical structure, a structure where everything comes in at level 4, and then goes from level 4 to level 3, and then from level 3 to level 2, and then from level 2 to level 1. And it takes forever. With a structure where when something comes in, when the problem, everybody who has a contribution to make to solving that problem immediately sees it, sits around the table, and everybody says, okay, let's put heads together, decide what information we need to do this, and what we need to do. And the people that you have will not implement that, because it will show them up.
But if we were to listen to what you were saying here now, if you had to put one item out of your bag, would you say that public sector reform has very many tangential benefits, that would be the one thing that we should look at addressing?
I think that the two roadblocks that I've are both essential, and they will happen. The only question is timing. Will we do it when we still have the options before the crisis hits, or will we let it happen to us and have to do it as a result of the crisis?
I think the general consensus...
Those are two things you have to do. You have to observe the golden rule. If you are earning $4,000 a month and you are spending $4,700, you are going to go bankrupt. If the government is spending, is getting, as they did in the last $1,200, that's what I'm trying to tell you. You get $1,200, $1,200 million in taxes for the first 6 months, so you spend $1,400 million, so you have a deficit or your current account of $210 million. The result of that is your reserves are going to fall. So exactly. And when you run out of reserves, you lose the currency. Don't let anybody fool you. No country ever devalues voluntarily. What happens is you lose control, because the day that the central bank does not have reserves, it cannot say to the market, if you have a legitimate payment to make and you cannot get money for exchange to make that payment anywhere else in the system, I will sell it to you at $2 Barbados to the US dollar. If you don't have any US dollar, you can't do that.
So considering that we're at 8.6 weeks of foreign reserves, how concerned should we be as a country in terms of being able to maintain our status with the peg? And at what point do we start? I don't want to say panic, because I don't think anybody should panic. But at what point do we get extremely concerned? Because 12 weeks is supposed to be the threshold for concern.
I think we should have been concerned. In fact, I know that we were concerned from this time last year, that the government was, that we recognized that we would fall below the 12 weeks. Mm-hmm. And the concern is out there. Mm-hmm. The investment community. That's why people are not investing. Yeah. Because the concern is acute. So it is not when should we get it. So the general public needs to understand that people are expecting action.
I raise this point because there has been some media exposure saying that it's fine. that's a general consensus, even though it's falling below the 12 weeks. There's no reason to be concerned. So I just wanted to make sure that it's very clear that the level that it's at right now is cause for concern, and I'm glad that you raised the issue of the devaluation and the link towards the falling reserves.
You see, we have to understand how this thing happens in reality, right? What happens is that it reaches a point, so where we are right now is a situation where the banks are chronically short of foreign exchange. So if you need to make large payments, they have to put you in a queue, right? And that queue is going to has gotten worse because of the foreign exchange fee.
Yeah.
Because obviously, if you naively say, if you bring money in, you don't have to pay the fee. But everybody who brings money in has an occasion subsequently to make foreign things. So if you know that when you actually go to make foreign payments, or if not yourself, somebody else that you know is going to need the foreign exchange, you're not going to pay it. So what you have done with the foreign exchange fee is you haven't cut expenditure, you have cut the supply of foreign exchange.
Correct.
So you aggravated the situation. And that is why I'm saying that people are holding on only because they're expecting decisive action once the election is called.
Regardless of the 42 parties that in power, we know that elections are going to trigger action no matter what, and we know what the actions have to be.
And this is what I'm saying. I'm saying the action has to be along the lines that I have laid out, because that is the only thing that will bring the government back within the golden rule. That is the only thing that will bring the expenditure back within the compass of the available taxation.
One of the things that we've had many people who come through here, and we've had many very good ideas. The challenge that I find is that we have something about what's called the implementation deficit disorder. How do we motivate our leaders to implement?
That is what I'm talking about. I'm saying that we must choose leaders who will do what they know to do. We have never had this situation in my experience, my 40 odd years of experience in the public sector, until this administration. That is why I say that nothing that I have in this proposal is new. These are things which the administration, we have, as I say, an excellent framework for policy making in this country. And these are things, if you go back and you look at, you read the press releases, you look at the trajectory of what has been planned, you go read the medium-term fiscal and the targets and so on, you see that the elements of what we are talking about are all there.
I think the elephant in the room was the political expediency versus the economic.
But that's always been the case.
Somebody asked.
So in 1991, there was political expediency. But yet we did it. In 1982, there was political expediency, and yet we did it. And now and the thing about it, and the thing is that you said you were going to do it.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on the point about the foreign exchange fee, because Barbados is one of the few remaining countries in the Caribbean that has such stringent capital controls, or at least stated capital controls. In the Eastern Caribbean, you can exchange foreign currency for local currency relatively easily. Jamaica, of course, they have a floating rate, so that happens there. But we still have it. To what extent do these controls, and I know it probably wouldn't be a good idea to just release all of them one time right now, but to what extent are these controls still useful, and to what extent do they actually deter investment coming in and have exacerbated the foreign exchange problem?
This isn't a persistent myth that I have been writing about and so on for over 20 years. We do not have exchange controls. We have an exchange monitoring system. So there is no control over payments for anything that you can show a bill for, right? So if you have to make foreign payments for imports or anything like that, you go to the bank and you show the thing and you make the payments, right? If you have contracted services from abroad and so on, and you have a thing, if you have to
control yourself. I get what
no,
you're trying
but
to
those
say.
things are those things are not you know.
No, I'm not saying that, but I get the way they would say that they're controlling.
No, but there's no control over it.
They're controlling itself.
No.
But I get what you're saying that you're not stopping somebody from
No,
getting.
but what I'm saying is that let me go back to Shane's point. Shane says there are no controls in the OECS. So the process of importing in Barbados is exactly the same as in the OECS. There is no control. There is nothing that, what you report to the central bank is a total at the end of the month. But there's no control by central bank about those things, okay, over those things. What the central bank does is the central bank says that for payments where there is not an obligation, a bill to be paid. So if you have invested and so on, and you want to send out dividends, and even if you sell and you want to send out capital gains and so on, right? Those have to be referred to the central bank. But there's no control over it. So long as you have documented that these are your receipts and that you have a legitimate, there's a legitimate flow underlying them, then there are, you are guaranteed that those will be approved. So the only thing that the exchange control does is that if there are unrequited transfers, if you need to make a transfer out of Barbados for which you haven't invested money in Barbados, it isn't earnings that you made, you haven't bought a house in Barbados, and it is appreciated in value, you haven't sold your property in Barbados and you live abroad, and therefore all of those things you automatically get a permission for. So the only thing that is subject to central bank determination is if it are unrequited transfers.
Before we get too far off the point with the foreign reserves, we've had Otis Henry, Gregory McConney, and Adrian McLean all asking about the sale of capital assets in order to prop up the reserves. So they want to know your viewpoint where that is concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what they're thinking of.
Hilton, for example.
Yeah, but that's not a solution, right? So that will give you, $100 million, but you still have the fundamental problem that you need to make the revenue and expenditure.
Hole in the bucket.
It's not only just the issue that it was being sold for $100 million, but it was a significantly undervalued sale, and there was very little consideration given for the shareholders,
We can't say it's undervalued because we haven't seen the valuation.
Based on the media reports, it was $100 million undervalued.
I mean, less than book value.
That's no.
No, we don't want to get into the rest of the valuation because I have some strong views on that. And I think that is another area where, people are uninformed, right? There is no objective measure of value. The only measure we have is what the buyer and seller are willing to agree on.
Ultimately. But there are measures of valuation and you can put for research.
Yeah, but they're all invalid. Because
All invalid.
Exactly.
All invalid.
And I've written about that, so I
we
can
should
send you.
research.
Exactly.
Inform yourself. And probably the point where they have persons offering more, that probably invalid too as well.
Because
And there are people who have offered more for it.
But no, if there are people who have offered more, then that is the real value. So the more, if there are no people offering more, then the value is it. But if there are people offering more, you have to take the people the greater part, provided that they're legitimate, right? And provided that you think that they are interested in actually allowing the property to operate as is. There are people who will offer you all kinds of things, but they intend to strip it of value and eventually cause.
Where's the no transparency in these type of processes? At the end of the day, there are assets that are being sold. Why there's no transparency?
Absolutely, and that is part of this public sector reform that we must insist on. We must insist on transparency and accountability in a real sense. So all of these state-owned, the Hilton is owned by a state-owned enterprise. That enterprise needs to be preparing annual reports in a timely manner. All these annual reports are supposed to be presented within 3 months of the end of their financial year. That is the sort of reform. But that is what I'm saying. The people of this country who are paying the taxes, which are supporting these institutions, and so on, have to insist that our leaders reform the public sector so that these things are actually done.
But how do we do that if you have a manifesto in 2008, one that is in 2013 which highlights Prevention of Corruption Act? I think the last time we checked,
it's not corruption, it's incompetence.
But it's it's embodied within that.
So and it is simple. If the report is presented and is presented in a timely fashion, then all of the things that you only discover 5 or 6 years later when it's no longer relevant are discovered in real time.
Correct. Best practices internationally need to be implemented.
Exactly. We have to understand that there are no longer any islands. Once you reach our level of development in the world, once you're as interconnected as we are, we have to adopt and maintain the standards that are that we observe, that are equivalent to what we observe in London and Toronto and New York.
But getting back to your point, not dressing back to the future, because I don't want to be hypocritical, but you're advocating transparency, accountability, and participation. But when it was your turn in your tenure, that did not happen, because you seem to think that the press releases were okay, but they were not okay, because we never had the opportunity to ask you the questions we wanted to.
You did.
No, we did not.
You did.
Where did we have it, sir?
Because in the panels, we had what we have here now. We had a totally interactive. Don't tell me no. I organized the panel, so I know.
Sir, I can tell you no. Because the
I
person
don't understand.
Let's move on from that. Because we will agree to disagree, we will back and forth. We will back and forth the internet, and we do not offer. We agree that we disagree. I have a concerned caller. That's what they're calling themselves. If there's no undervalue in the shares, how in law do you claw back shares, and the concept of undervalue does exist?
I don't know.
That's their statement.
I don't think we really want to get into that.
repeat that again. I didn't understand.
The question of valuation is actually more troublesome than people realize.
How do you claw back the shares if there's no undervaluation?
Exactly.
I read some of your readings on that, so I started from that angle. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
No, I just wanted to touch on, because the report touches on how do you reduce your expenses a lot. So it touches on the transfers and subsidies, it touches on the rates and salaries. It also touches on the interest component, where the central bank, the government having reduced the current account deficit or eliminated it, will then enter the market to reduce the T-bill rate, and that will bring down all the interest rates. Now there's another view out there that suggests that what the government should do is to follow, for example, like Jamaica, and restructure its debt and reduce its interest costs in that way. I want to hear your comments. I mean, I have an idea of them, but I want to hear your comments, and I'm sure others want to hear what are the implications of adopting that strategy versus your strategy.
Right. Well, first of all, let me clarify. Jamaica did not restructure its debt.
Well, they exchanged the debt.
Exactly, which is a completely different thing. So Jamaica had a situation where the debt was very short term and at very high interest rates, right? So what they said is, hey guys, the interest rates that you're getting are way out of line with the market, okay? You can't get interest rates like these anywhere else, anywhere that you would really want to put your money, okay? So, and they are hurting the economy because, too much of the government's tax revenue is going in this direction. So what we're going to do, and they did it with the concurrence of the investors because the investors realized the reality of what they were saying. We're going to exchange those, bonds that are really at an unreasonably high rate of interest for bonds that are still at a premium, which will, and you're not touching your principal at all. So you're still going to get premium rates. It's just they're not going to be extortionary. So after their exchanges, and they did 2 of them, after their 2 exchanges, Jamaican interest rates are still twice as high as Barbadian interest rates.
They're falling, but they're still higher, yes.
The last time we looked at them, this was about a year ago. They were twice as high, okay? And so we are not in a situation to do what Jamaica did.
Right.
Because our rates are actually market rates. The government is paying a premium for its poor credit worthiness. If your credit worthiness is poor, you have to pay higher rates. And that is what the government is having to do. Right? So it doesn't have the Jamaican option. It really doesn't. And if it attempts to coerce, and it really would be totally unreasonable for them because as I said, the situation is so completely different. And what is more, it is unnecessary because in my strategy, as you would have read, you can actually bring the interest rates down through the central bank intervention. But once you have observed the golden rule, once you no longer have to be finding money every month, 17% of your revenue additional to actually finance that gap.
You would have highlighted that the fiscally irresponsible decisions that were made in the 2013 elections led to a further reduction of the current account to the tune of $1 billion. What policy reforms do you think we should consider to make sure that this does not happen again, that when election times come around, people do not use public funds to help make their campaign more attractive?
No, you see, you have to be realistic. In all democracies, there's something called an election cycle, right? So, what the responsible policy that this government actually said that it was committed to. The reason why we had 2 budgets in 2013, the reason why the government publicly announced that they were cutting 3,000 jobs. And as you said, they didn't do it in a reasonable, rational way, was so that they would correct the impact of the election cycle, right? You have to create space so that you can do some things around election time. It's the real world, guys.
I was thinking that you got to consider this whole election part of it, the whole political thing. We can't divorce this from the economics because they have to be.
But the point is that
if
you do not take the actions when you have the time to take the action, you can't then go and do what we're doing now, which is to pump up the expenditure, because you will have consequences. Not because I say so. You will have consequences because people will spend the money. When they spend the money, you don't have any additional foreign exchange.
I dropped two big questions
foreign
in my head.
exchange will go down.
One from former Prime Minister Onafo, who talks about tourism, let tourism lead. I don't see the tourism thing in the elements of the strategy per se. You could talk to that and the other
Because
thing-
because you don't need to do anything. Tourism is going great guns.
Great guns. So here again, more rival, less spending. That's great guns. That's not the
You know, I think I actually have a
And the
difficulty with
arrival
that.
numbers have been.
I have a difficulty with that.
But we
I
only
think-
want the numbers that we receive
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
the institutions.
Yeah,
It's
but
from
I
the
have,
government,
but
it's
that
from
is,
the central bank.
yeah, but that is the thing, you know, the expenditure numbers are not quote real numbers.
Right,
In
yeah,
other
they
words,
understand
they
the
don't do
samples
the,
numbers.
they don't do, and they're out of date, you know, and the whole reporting system has broken down.
But are these same numbers
Yeah.
the numbers you use to do your forecasting? Your
Of course, you have to.
reporting?
You don't have any. You don't have to. You
Well,
don't have
that's a
any.
major problem.
Yeah, but exactly, that is what I'm talking about. That is
Well,
part of the need for public sector reform.
One of the things with the tourism, one of the comments that keep coming out is that the funds that come from the tourism, they don't actually, the foreign exchange don't come to Barbados. That's one of the myth or rumors or whatever.
That's a
you
myth,
want.
yeah.
That's a myth.
Because you know, and you, it's not hard to figure out why it is a myth, right? If you're running a hotel, right, you have bills to pay. You have wages, you have electricity bills, water bills, supplies, etc., etc. You don't pay for those in foreign exchange, and your revenue in foreign exchange. So in order to pay for those, you have to convert some foreign exchange to Barbados dollars.
But that is the surplus because a lot of these
So the surplus, but the surplus
overseas, the agencies are overseas.
Yeah, so
But
you
they
don't
would-
want, but why do you want, why do you want the
Still
surplus in Barbados? Because the surplus is going to be invested. So you will get it invested in Barbados if you will give the permissions for people to expand their hotels and so on. That's where the surplus, you don't want the surplus to come in and sit in the central bank.
I thought you wanted to boost up those CMB foreign reserves.
No,
At
you
least
want,
some of it.
no, the foreign exchange grows because you control the government expenditure.
So you would encourage allowing people to have US dollar accounts in Barbados?
They have no rent.
But no, because I think recently they had some law passed in 2009 which was enacted recently where I think 70% of your account was converted to Barbados dollars.
Okay, I'm not aware of that detail.
I have a letter.
But I think that, you know, again, so that's very recent.
Yeah, apparently the law was passed in 2009 and never really enacted, and then people got letters in July, and they had 1 month to convert the money if not being converted involuntarily.
Yeah, you see, you know, this is going totally down the wrong street. Because people have choices. You know, if you create clear channels and transparency, and people know that they're eligible to you know, use their funds as they wish within your system, then people will bring the money in. If you tell them you can do this and you can't do that and you can't do that, then they have options.
Capital has flight or flexibility.
Exactly. You know, and I mean, I'm really very disappointed to hear that in 2017 the central bank is behaving in that manner.
Sure, I was going to post it on the Facebook page, but I'll show you. I think I still have the photo in here, but I'll show you again.
Yeah.
Because it was sent to me.
We've been talking a lot about tourism, but the sector that you have mentioned before that I got really excited about is the solar energy. And we have pioneers like Kevin Devonish, who is just, I think he's back from the Global Summit, who's representing us internationally in this field, yet it still feels as though there's so many barriers to this industry being able to properly take off. I myself, I'm fully powered by solar power. And I'm hoping that you don't.
So am I.
There we go. But the measures we had to do to go through that, I had to do it through my mortgage. And a lot of people say the financial difficulties, and even talking to Kevin, the difficulties in terms of getting the panels here and having buy-in from the government, and even then recently having the tax incentive taken away. what would you recommend that should be done to help the persons who bring the panels here, the consumers, and to encourage this energy saving form? Because I love the idea where you put to have it going through government offices as well, because that is a huge bill that we would be reducing in government expenditures.
Yeah, no, renewable energy in Barbados is a no-brainer, and I've been writing about this for several years now, right? And, you know, I was remarking to some colleagues at lunch that, you know, we used to say, and we still say, that Barbados has no resources, no natural resources. And that is absolutely wrong.
Here we go.
And that with the improvements in technology that have happened in the last decade, the sun and wind have now become an enormous natural resource that we have. And, you know, it is a resource that is more valuable and has greater potential than that for the growth of this economy than any fossil fuel could have.
But
right? It's never going to run out, and so we could actually double our growth rate at least by converting to 100% renewable energy. And we know that the existing wind and solar technology, we can do that.
But that goes back to the point we made earlier. But all that is written but not implemented, because the government signed on to 100% renewable energy as a policy.
And
so it is written.
And then there's also a contrary.
Exactly.
Because
So that's so again reinforcing the need for real public sector reform, right? So, sort of, and with the other element that I think that I don't know if I mentioned it in my paper, but I think that we need technical assistance from our friends who have done it and who we look up to as examples of efficient public sector operations, the Canadians in particular.
I want to just go back to the solar energy. Linking back in with the oil terminal sale, does that go contrary to the policy of solar energy, in my opinion? Because my understanding, I could be misinformed, is that there are guaranteed rate of return on capital in that agreement. If that's in place, what that effectively means is that if you have 11,000 barrels going through the system, or zero, you still have to pay a minimum fixed return of capital. So there's no incentive. There's no incentive for the company to operate efficiently, because you're guaranteeing a rate of capital, and you're guaranteeing on oil. So if you stop oil to do solar energy, we still have to pay for that plant. Is that correct? Would that be a correct assumption?
So I don't know the details of the Sol deal. I haven't followed it, so I'm not in a position to give any definitive comment on that. But what I will say is that in principle, these things are not being done in the way that they should be. I'm saying you have a state-owned corporation. State-owned corporations, and these are the things that we have to address in the reform process. State-owned corporations should be run as corporations. They should have a competent board of directors. They should have a set of objectives which that board of directors, is obliged to deliver on, and they should operate and make decisions about all aspects of their operations, independently of the political process.
I just want to touch on international business now, because that is another one of the big sectors, but it's one of the sectors that has taken a hit, particularly in recent times. I mean, just up to yesterday, we were blacklisted again by the EU, and it seems that for the last almost 10 years, we've been doing all of these things to become compliant, whether it be the OECD Global Forum, the Financial Action Task Force, etc., etc. And every time you do something, someone comes out and still puts another roadblock. Given that we've lost so much tax revenue from that sector, what are the things that we need to do now to get that sector up and going again? Or do we say to ourselves, we might have to try our hands elsewhere?
Absolutely not, because the thing about our international business and financial services sector is that it's a multifaceted sector. The weakness is that it is too heavily concentrated in the Canadian market. But in terms of what the activities that come under that umbrella, if you take not only the registered international business and financial business, but also what are called the RBCs, the ones that are licensed locally, but benefit from the tax, the graduated tax regime. I think we call it the regular business companies or something like that. Anyhow, but these are companies that remember, we are operating in a world in which global corporations do different things in different places, right? There are supply chains that are global, right? And in those supply chains are service providers. So there are accounting services, there are legal services, there are arbitration services, there are a number, there are design services, there are customer relation services, there are human resource administration services, and stuff like that. There are things that you have to do cultural barriers, lobbying. So there are a range of things that we do. And what we have got to do is we have got to have a more focused approach on the development of the provision of those services which can be most cost effectively done in Barbados because of our advantages. Language advantage, the fact that making language, our location, the fact that the climate is all year round. So if you are global and you want to bring people, this is a good place, and so on. So we need to be refocusing the sector more in the direction of companies like DeLisle and similar companies, right? Not to say that you neglect the ones that you already have, not to say that you neglect the service companies and so on. But our strategy has to be different. We are going around with this strategy which is aiding and abetting the people who are trying to put us out of business. Right? So that whatever you do, however clean you do it, they are going to find something that is wrong. Okay? And badly wrong. And the really annoying thing about this last report is that they do not include any EU countries. So their beef is actually not with Barbados or the countries that they have blacklisted. Their beef is with Ireland and Switzerland and countries that are in Europe. But they don't include them in the analysis.
And they don't include the biggest offender of all, which is the USA territory,
exactly.
South Dakota, Las Vegas, Delaware, and Puerto Rico.
So it is a self-inflicted wound because we know that. So we know that the strategy of trying to be clean, which is what the strategy is, will not work. You need an alternative strategy. This is the strategy that I was leading, where you go to the highest levels and you say, guys, we must have a process which is inclusive and a playing field which is level. And anybody who does not abide by that, there must be, whatever they say and whatever they say, those must be, we must make it clear that they have no legitimacy and that nobody is bound by those things.
Yeah, just I just want to.
And the thing, the reason why that is a strategy that can work is that there are many countries, in fact, most of the countries that are involved, including influential countries like Hong Kong and so on, are behind that strategy.
Just as a follow-up, in 2012, I think it was the budget, the Minister of Finance essentially cut the tax rates on international business companies in half. And that was as a response of trying to keep business in the country. And that, I don't know how much it worked, but if we are a low tax as opposed to zero tax jurisdiction, and the Cayman Islands and the BVI, etc., are zero tax jurisdictions, to what extent is that strategy useful, trying to cut taxes? Because all it seemed to do to me is to reduce our revenues by quite a substantial amount, maybe not half, but quite a bit. Should we not then be competing on the things you mentioned, language, location, education, rather than on tax rates? And maybe is there a scope then, after we've gone past this rough period, to actually increase those tax rates back to the levels they were, or should we keep them where they are?
I mean, I don't want to say yeah or nay, but what I will say is that we have enough expertise at our disposal to come to an informed position as to the entire scope and thrust of our where we should be going in our international business. But again, because the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing to these people have to report to this body can't do this because it hasn't been approved and all that kind of thing. So the arcane structures that we have in the public sector, we do not actually have a policy.
Just tying that back into one or the other, we've had many people in here, and we're looking at alternatives. Two of the things that of interest to me is recently the UE rebranded their consulting program under Lumen with Lisa Cummins. I think that's a very interesting concept for the Caribbean, and I think that we in Barbados should be embracing that consultancy because I think there's a lot of benefits that can be derived through the technological field. And one of the other opportunities I see in the international business sector is what I call the digital transformation sector. I was recently at a session, I think it was by the ADC, on the digital sessions a couple of weeks ago. One of the commentators had indicated that we lost a company that was coming here to raise $100 million using the ICOs, the coin token.
I know what you mean. Initial coin offering?
Yeah, initial coin.
Right.
And the challenge they had was actually just opening a bank account. But normally, once you have the Bitcoin set up, you can, in any EU companies you walk in, you present your passport, whatever you get it. They have been on the edge because they can't just even open a bank account. And then related to the central bank, I understand, we have another company here that's trying to do things and they're kind of in a state of flux. So I don't want to get into that type of thing, but I'm trying to say, how can we modernize and move that, you call it the archaic thinking, and move that into the 21st century to be able to capitalize on these type of markets, because these are going to be shifting. I don't want to get into the digital currency, but as a whole different engagement. But how do we, and do you see it as a benefit of trying to capitalize on this digital market as well as what people like Lisa Cummins and the university are doing?
Absolutely. This is the future. And because we have such outstanding people who are helping to frame that future. You didn't mention BIT, but that is, to me, exactly. But, there are, BIT has an international reputation. They're like our fertility center. People who, people just know about them because they are, so forward thinking, and respect them for that. And so one of the things that I think that the Asian countries have taught us that is the key to successfully transforming your economy and going in new directions is that the government must be involved, but it must, follow the lead that is given by the private sector, right? So you have to see who are the people who are doing things. where is the inventiveness coming from? And then you follow those possibilities and you say, what support in practice do they need? If they're having problems with opening bank accounts and so on, and you know why they're having these problems, then you should have in place a task force, maybe just one or two people, who are saying, how do we find solutions to make that happen for these companies? Because it is important for your brand. Because if you keep them as Barbadian companies, that says something about who Barbados is, that we are part of the future. Because they have options.
I agree.
They can go elsewhere, where other people who have a vision will offer them a hospitable space. But they want to be here. And that is again a reason, and these are the things, that, this is why we pay taxes. This is what the privilege that we have in elections, to elect people who understand these things. And the people who are putting themselves up for our election must educate themselves about these possibilities. We need people to run for election who believe that we can surmount the challenges. People cite the example of Singapore all the time, right? The difference that I have detected between Singapore and Barbados is the quality of their leadership. The leadership in Singapore sees a problem and they say, what is the solution to this problem? This is our country. We are an independent country. When we see the roads are not being fixed, we must not accept that the roads are not being fixed. We can't afford it. We need a government that will get the roads fixed.
And get the problems fixed.
I just wanted to make a couple points because Gregory McConney has posted several comments in relation to one of the areas we were discussing. So he's asking us not to focus on direct tax revenue, to focus on the employment and services provided locally that generate a lot of pay, wage, and other indirect tax revenue that does not get counted as attributable to international business. He went further to say, with the substance push internationally, we are in a superior position to service that business compared to other jurisdictions, and our operational costs are well below the other main jurisdictions in this hemisphere, and we need to consider the overall contribution and figure out how to measure it well to make informed decisions. And I think that's also another area we fall down well in. A lot of the times we're making decisions on very outdated information, and we have not figured out a way how to measure the information in real time. Because even by the time the Auditor General's report comes out, that information is very much in the past. So
absolutely. But I think that it's a point that people like Nicholas Bradford has made, that one of the things that you're required to do as CEO of whatever organization is to make the decisions where there is insufficient information. Right? You can put systems in place that people down the line can make the decisions when they have the adequate information. But we, without part of the reform that we have to achieve in the public sector is to get our data and information systems to work, because most of them actually do not work at the moment. Okay, so we are working on very poor data. The points that McConney makes are very well taken. That one of the things that my recommendations are designed to do is to release some of the fetters, including the overtaxation on the private sector. The way in which these small businesses are being hit is through the increase in the prices of the things that they're buying, right? And that is stifling the economy. It is actually reducing people's incomes. It may even cause some people, as people are beginning to realize, some job losses in that small and medium enterprise sector and informal activity and so on. And these are the lubricants of our economy. Right? This is the way in which the impact of tourism and international business and all the other foreign exchange activities multiply within the economy and create new jobs. So, he's right that, we need to focus on sort of reducing this excess tax burden so that this activity can flourish.
One of the things that Gregory didn't put in there was very pertinent and it reflects, because it gets buried within the tourism figures, is the high contribution that this sector makes to the hotels and the restaurants and the informal sector like the taxis, etc. Because a lot of these folks, when they come down, they're staying at all different ranges of hotels from the middle to very, very upper.
Yeah, and they have board meetings and so on, and they have conventions, and they send some of their people incentive trips and stuff like that. So I mean, it's really and there's just the networking, and the people come for one thing and they notice that there's some nice properties on sale, and they make business associations and so on. And there are things that we can do to actually open new avenues in that area, but it needs creative thinking.
What is just moving back on to foreign direct investment? That was one of the biggest shortfalls within our foreign exchange reserve. The first part of that question is what is, if Barbados had to go to borrow again, what would the interest rates that they would have to pay based on the yields, etc.?
Right. So, effectively, Barbados is out of the market so long as it has a credit rating as low as it is. Because what we discovered over the last, our last exercises with the international markets is that the people who invest in Barbados debt are people who are looking for security of yield over the long term, right? So they're not buying and selling, right? And so they will buy your debt because their investment rules permit them to do, because if it is investment grade, and they will hold it to maturity, right? And we have lost that market because we are no longer investment grade. So, and it matters because we are actually having to repay debt as it matures. Whereas if we had even kept close to the investment grade and had the possibility of immediate return to investment grade, we might have been able to roll over some of the debt. So we had to repay in December last year, was it about $75 million, right? Which is one of the reasons why you'll see the and I suspect we haven't a similar, not quite so large. No.
She's talking about 2021, 2022. Those two
Exactly. So that's the other reason why I
recommend the IMF,
exactly,
the international,
because I think with this strategy, and particularly the beauty of this strategy is that with support from the international financial institutions and decisive action on the current account with the fiscal, we can restore, according to my calculations, we can restore the foreign exchange very quickly. And if we do that, then we can, and we have, and the economy is growing, right? We can reverse that investment decline and get back to investment grade. Everybody's saying we can't get back to investment grade. I'm saying with this program we can.
We've had some fears, which we had Shane and Katrina Christina, I keep calling her Katrina. You had Shane and Christina discuss the IMF and the fears that persons have around that. You've recommended going to the IMF, the International Development Bank, and the Caribbean Development Bank as alternatives for financing. What a lot of people see the IMF as this boogeyman that is going to force a particular policy down our throats if we want their money, and that we're going to have the money at exorbitant rates. I wanted you to address that.
I think that we really need to insist that people inform themselves and do not operate on the idea that the fund lends money at exorbitant rate is just wrong.
Quite the opposite.
So what kind of rates are we looking at?
I don't know the details, but the rates are
very low.
Well, recently I've been looking at them, and they're linked to their own. So they're very low, and they're linked to their own special joint rates, which themselves are very low right now because rates, global rates are very low.
I think the theory IMF has more to do with the structural adjustment that comes and the fiscal discipline that people expect to have.
I have written about that, right? And we have the experience. So we went through a structural adjustment program. An adjustment program in '91, which is far more severe than what I'm now recommending. And within 3 years, we were back on our feet. We didn't even have to complete the program, and it had absolutely no effect on social conditions in Barbados. I've been through this argument already. They have marches that said people are going to lose their houses, that people are going to be starving on the streets and all that. Absolutely not. I have written 3 or 2 months ago, in July, I think, about 4 experiences of countries that have remained in the very highest category of human development, which have had recent IMF programs, and which are now among the strongest performing countries anywhere in the world. Iceland, remember what happened with Iceland during the financial crisis and the Icelandic banks and so on, right? I think, if I'm not mistaken, the growth rate in Iceland last year was 7% or something. Something ridiculous.
But that's good.
Right? Yeah. Ireland, Latvia, and Cyprus. All countries that are in the very highest category of human development. I think Ireland is number 8, Iceland is number 9, Latvia is, I can't remember, and Cyprus. But they're all well ahead of Barbados. Okay? These are the countries that we need to get. The programs involve substantial cuts in expenditure, in total expenditure. And, they had a much larger than we would require. And it had absolutely no effect on the social part.
The reason I was asking you a question about the interest rates is it was actually to get to that point, the miss, because we have an audience over here that they come here to learn and understand, because you and I understand the rates or whatever. So while it may not be investment grade, like if Barbados had to go to get interest rates, you would say it would be in 14%, 13% range if they had to go now?
No, this is the point, that if we were to float in the market, issue in the market, I doubt we would get a subscription. We would get adequate subscription.
Well, the point
because the people who are looking for yield, they want big amounts.
We float in the market about 3 years as well. Didn't get subscription.
Detroit, yeah.
And that was 3 notches up.
And that was the thing, right? Well, what the strategy, and that reinforced to me that there are, as I said, 2 types of investors. Because the strategy that we were trying to do is that we were trying to get to that market size. We were actually trying for an issue of 500 million, right? Now we didn't need 500 million, right? We needed about 250 million US at the most, right? But in order to attract those investors who are looking for yield and who are buying and selling all the time, right? The minimum that they would be interested in is 500 million. Okay, so what we would have had to do was to have repaid 250 million of the existing debt, or gotten those people to be interested in the route. And they said, we are not interested.
But the point was
And we couldn't get 250 million, but I can get the 500 of the rest.
No, the point was there's a myth out there as to what the apps, because people believe that the IMF is going to be higher interest rates than what you're
No.
normally paying.
The IMF interest rates have nothing to do with the market.
So I've been in several discussions, and when I'm telling people that, like right now our yields are 13 to 14%, but you can get the IMF at 2 to 3%, they're like, well, why are we doing this yesterday? But these were the same people who 3 posts earlier were saying that the IMF is going to charge you exorbitant rates. So the point I was just trying to get out is that there's a major differential, there's a myth in the fact that when you go to the IMF, that your rates are going to be higher than what you get right now.
IMF has just been known as a political bad word, but I want to get a question here from the Minister of Finance, who's saying that they want 4,500 people will cause misery and result in systemic failures. It would radicalize the unions and crush the confidence of the working poor. Strain on the already straining social system will lead to all kinds of antisocial behavior in the country.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a political statement.
What I would say though, and to be fair, is that the strategy does have a role for a package.
Exactly.
And if that package is, I think you said equivalent to 2 years of income or something like that.
You have 2 years to figure out an alternative.
I think the challenge then is how do you get the economy growing at a rate that's quick enough that the private sector then absorbs that labor within the 2 years.
But how do you make it palatable to, you will have to do it after the election for sure, because how do you go to election talk and say, well, 4,500 people over a 3-year period?
There's nothing in my thing that says that.
That says what?
That I'm selling home 4,500.
Isn't 1,500
per year over
per year
3
for
years?
3 years?
Exactly, which is a completely different thing.
Oh, come
With
on.
a package.
Alright.
With a package.
But-
With a package. It's different.
I thought that 2015 was for everybody.
Yeah.
No.
This
Over.
way
Yeah.
It is a message that comes across. You know, and you guys cannot be forgiven for that.
Forgive me.
You know what you're saying.
No, 1,500 by 3 is 4,500.
But
Right?
it
And if you do it any other way, the public will have you for lunch saying that you are trying to pull one over on them because the total number you're going for is what they're interested in. Not this year, because Barbados does not end this year. It ends whenever it ends, but not in the next 3 years. So it is 4,500. Because you will do it
But
this year.
there is a material difference between 4,500 in one go.
No, nobody's. I know. Don't put that to me.
1,500 a year.
But you did not say that. You said 4,500.
Over a
You know.
3-year period, they put it in a 3-year period, and 270 for the separation packages. So people saying, okay, we're going to send more 1,500 people over 3 years, again, put it how you want me to put it, and then go for $270,000 as a loan.
Million.
270 million as a loan. How do you speak to people that are diametrically opposed to that?
They are very opposed to the package.
Yeah. To going for 270 loan just for the packages.
Okay, you have to get the loan to finance.
To finance the
But
separation packages.
you know, the point is that when you why do you go to the IMF? You go to the IMF for financial assistance. So in any case, you're going to get a loan from the IMF. In 1991, we got a loan from the IMF. What we did was we put the foreign exchange in the central bank's reserves, and then we created a deposit equivalent to that foreign exchange for the government. We locked up that deposit because we didn't have a separation package at that time. So all you're going to do this time is that the money that you're going to get, which is actually going to be, hopefully, if you get all the institutions on board, a lot more than $270 million. You're going to release enough of it from the blocked deposit that you would otherwise have at the central bank and finance the separation package of it.
But the figure could actually be higher than 1,500 for the if you factor in that you have understaffing in areas that are affecting the performance of each of the particular sectors. So if you have places like Krystle's favorite location, the Auditor General, who is understaffed by a number of people, there are another entities that the service is compromised because they're understaffed. So if you have to staff,
a lot of that's overstaffed.
Yeah, that's the point. You see, and,
you know,
most offices of that kind are not understaffed. The problem is that the staff is not up to scratch.
So,
What I will say is that we have actually gone over time by a bit. I know the conversation has been very engaging. I will take one more comment from Facebook, and then each person will find one more question that they must ask, and then we will have you with your closing comments. We have Lisa Gill of Lisa Gill Consulting. She stated that as we cut the jobs in the public sector, the pain will also be felt in the private sector. Less overall revenue will be had, and given falling demand, etc. What intermediary measures are being suggested to lead to this new economic reality, the long-term, i.e. HR retooling? We are already experiencing social fallout from the long-term economic strains. Mortgages and other commitments will be compromised, and significant changes are needed as the debt still needs to be honored. So that is her statement.
You want me to comment on
Any
that?
comments that you have?
I think that what has happened is that the NSRL and the measures that are being taken are actually strangling the economy right now. And so, you're taking, if they had gotten what they were had anticipated, the price increases that you would have seen will be much bigger than you have actually seen, and they would have taken, that was the government's original estimate, as much as about 4% of GDP out of the economy. So that actually is what is causing, and in real time it was already happening, the loss of income and jobs and so on in the private sector, if not the actual jobs, at least the revenues that people, professional and personal services and so on, are down because people cannot afford it because the prices have gone up.
But
so,
educate me to this though, because I want you to educate me.
So let me finish. So what is happening is that these people are on average, and I have the chart in my paper, on average more productive than the people that you're supporting in the public sector. So you are actually at the moment putting productive private sector workers under strain in order to support unproductive or less productive public sector workers. So if you remove the NSRL and make the adjustments that I have done, first of all, you're not going to have any impact on expenditure because you're not sending them home empty-handed. And secondly, you are releasing the spending power of the more productive private sector by reducing the tax burden.
If you take off the NSRL, you take off the VAT, you could anticipate prices coming down immensely in Barbados.
Yes.
If you take off the NSRL,
they're not going to go back to what they were before the NSRL.
No, because prices adapt to market conditions. If you are losing business because people simply cannot afford your products, if you are given an opportunity to make those products more affordable, then you will take it.
So
that's the magic of the market.
Each person's one question. Start with Duane.
How long do you think it will take for us to return to investment grade?
I think we can achieve investment grade within the 5-year period.
5 years from C to...
according to my 5 years or less, according to the projections that I have that I've worked out, right? It is, you can't predict it accurately because the criteria that the rating agencies use include some qualitative criteria, but in terms of the quantitative numbers, our numbers will be back at investment grade by my projections within less than 5 years.
All right, for me, my thing is towards revenue because we spend a lot of time in terms of reducing expenditure as opposed to how do we, because we see us in the poor model in terms of having confidence in self and confidence in state and raising the revenue. You said that we are the most competitive, although you did want to say that the legal system, approvals, water supply, and roads, these things just ain't working, but yet we're still the most competitive. So I don't know what that says for the others. But what recommendations you would put in terms of, or what prospects you think Barbados has in terms of significantly raising state's revenue in the short to medium term, or the medium to long term, to be fair?
Right. So let me first make a comment about the competitiveness. The competitiveness index that I'm using is drawn from the Global Competitiveness Report, which is the report that is put out. It's online by the World Economic Forum, and you can Google it, and there is a page on Barbados' competitiveness. I also have one of my economic letters in which I sort of look at the elements that go into that, and I point out the elements. First of all, that overall Barbados is still the most competitive in the Caribbean, but that we have lost ground, and I point out the elements in which we have lost ground. We've not lost ground in education, not lost ground in health, not lost ground in market institutions or labor market or financial market institutions, but we have lost ground in our macroeconomic performance and in government, in the confidence that people have in government. That's the first point. In terms of the revenue, to increase our revenue, the public sector, an element of the public sector reform is improvement in our revenue administration. This is another area in which we promised the public, the administration promised the public of Barbados that there would be significant improvements in efficiency, and we have not seen it. And so we have got to have a reform process which delivers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was trying to think what would be the last question, but I think one of the things you pointed out was the vision that Singapore had. Clearly, some of these measures are not politically popular in terms of the retrenchment, but the alternative is worse, because if you run out of reserves, then all hell breaks loose.
Mm-hmm.
How do we encourage, we use that term, our leaders to have that vision beyond just the 1 year or even the 5 year horizon?
10 years.
How do we help them to recognize that in 91 we had less reserves than we have now, but by 2006-07 we were a much better off country and perhaps society?
We don't need to go back to that. I mean, that record is there.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm saying that in my paper I have shown in a logical way how taking these measures will actually restore our reserves within about a year to levels that will eliminate the apprehension that now rules the market. We will do that in a context in which we are realizing the potential that the economy is, the underlying potential which tourism at its current growth rate is offering to our economy through the people who want to build hotels. Where are the hotels not being built? Administrative days of one kind of things that we all know about. I'm saying that if you have a public sector which gets these things done, then that will actually, solve our problems. So, there is no downside to what I'm doing. There's no downside for the people who are being separated. There's no downside for the economy. And so, and it does not require a 10-year horizon. I'm saying that this will actually begin to show results in a very short space of time.
Well, my question is in relation to the Auditor General's report, because a lot of the issues that have been brought up have been addressed there. Is the Public Accounts Committee and the Director of Public Prosecution sufficient to help enforce some of the concerns that have been raised? And if not, what would you recommend?
No, I think there's nothing wrong with our structures, including the Auditor General's report. The question is that the thing has it has to be in a more timely manner. If you, with the best will in the world, if you in 2017 are referring to things that happened in 2013, people have forgotten about that. They don't care anymore. But if reports were annual reports of corporations were being produced as the law requires, and if the Auditor General were then in a position to selectively and randomly, do audits on these things, you don't want to do everything. You do, rolling audits throughout the system. Then, you would detect the malfeasance in a sufficient timely fashion that there would be pressure on the relevant institution to do something about it.
Well, we have had a case where, in recent times, where the housing issue went before the Public Accounts Committee, and then ministers refused to show up, and then got lawyers, and then said the committee was invalid, and you had that whole back and forth. So we had a case where something went all the way to the committee, and it was just dismissed.
Right, and one of the things that doesn't work in Barbados is our legal system.
And on that note,
I agree on that.
I will definitely agree on that as well. On that note, I will thank you and everyone else for taking the time to share with us.
And I really want to thank you for, first of all, to congratulate you on this forum. I think that this is part of, the dynamism that, I think, is the future of our economy. It speaks to, the creativity and the fact that this is the 21st century economy. We don't have a 21st century government, but the economy and the culture and so on is of the 21st century. And I really appreciate the opportunity.
I appreciate you being here. I really do. And the panel, I love that you guys come out and help to support this cause and to help push the education out there in a way that hopefully does not go over the heads of persons, and the audience for coming in with the questions, the comments, the feedback, the sharing, the love. Everything is really appreciated, and bear with us with our technical issues. Y'all gotta remember, I'm an auditor, I'm a tech person, but thank you for bearing with me. I would also like to take this opportunity to share about a youth debate that is being organized by Kimar Safri, and he's asked myself and Corey Lane to also participate. We're going to be having parliamentary representatives from the different parties. We have DLP, BLP, UPP, BIM, and Solutions Barbados on board. And it's going to be at the Marriott. We're encouraging all millennials to come out. It's on Saturday, the 16th of December at 6 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Seats are limited. There are, I believe, 100 seats available because it's in the meeting room. So you can go on the Facebook page. I will share it on my page again so that you'll be able to confirm your attendance. Please come out. We're also going to, myself and Kim are going to be on Morning Barbados on Friday, confirming that date is going to be set. That's what I was told. Not barring any changes, we're also going to be there to share some more information about the debate. We are asking you to submit your questions beforehand because the questions won't be allowed on the floor. But please come out and have your views aired. Share the questions that you would like to hear your politicians answer about. See how it can be included in their manifestos, and hopefully they will follow up on their manifestos if they do get into power, and let your voices be heard. So once again, thank you to everyone. Time is appreciated. And thank you to the audience.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
When you miss it, no, you get hot in here.